Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the CSMI radio broadcast, Today's Christian Music with James Burkhardt.
And good afternoon. Welcome to Today's Christian Music. I'm James Burkhardt. With me on the phone is M.L. Morlock from Nashville, Tennessee. M.L., how are you today?
I'm great, James. How are you guys doing?
Terrific. So, let's start out by asking you to give a little bit of a background, where you came from, what your family was like, how you started playing music. But I'm also interested to hear the story behind the nickname Pistol.
You've been reading my bio.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. Oh, my goodness. Well, my mother always called me a pistol. I can't imagine why. But, well, just to give you a little bit of background about my family, I'm an Air Force brat, and my father was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, and we moved all over the country, sometimes out of the country. I was born in Texas, and we moved to Alaska right away, one of my favorite states to live in. And I don't know how I got the name Pistol. I guess I've never been afraid just to draw the line and just stick a toe over, just see how far I can get away with something before I got in trouble. That's kind of how I was as a kid, and I was into all kinds of things, and my mother just always had a hard time keeping tracks on me. I was climbing trees and running down the road and running around barefooted and just having, being a kid, having a good childhood. But let's see, the musical part. I think my parents discovered that I had some music ability when I was about 3.5, maybe 4. My older brother and sister were taking piano lessons, and I would listen to their piano lessons. And I do not remember this, but my father loved to tell the story. But he would always tell the story that I could listen to their pieces and turn around and play their pieces for them at such a young age. Like I said, 3.5, 4 years old, somewhere in there. And one day around that time, my father came walking into the living room thinking that he was hearing my brother, who was like 8 at the time, playing his pieces, thought he was playing his pieces when he saw me sitting there playing my brother's pieces. And he went and grabbed my mother and said, I think we're giving piano lessons to the wrong kids because they're the one that can do it and has not even had a lesson yet. So they released my brother and sister from taking piano lessons, and I know they were glad because my brother at heart was a drummer, and he eventually went into drumming, and my sister was more into horses, and, she got a horse. And for me, they really just let me do the piano. And so I've been playing piano since I was little, and started writing my own songs when I was like around 12, 13, and, just having fun, being exploratory and just creative as much as I could at that early age, yeah. So that's me
awesome.
musically.
Yeah, well, green sleeves can lead down an interesting road, can't it?
Yes, that was one of the pieces I first started playing when I was little. And I just love that piece. And my father was always playing classical pieces on the stereo and saying, who's this? Identify this. Or he would take me to symphonies. He was always trying to instill music, especially more into me because I was definitely leaning in that way versus my brother and sister. But, yeah, Green Sleeves, what a beautiful song, right?
Yeah, well, most people know it as What Child Is This, the Christmas hymn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is beautiful.
Oh, yes, it's a beautiful song. Just love it.
Yeah, well, I can tell from your YouTube video that you like Christmas because you did a very interesting interpretive thing I saw a video of you doing something to O Holy Night. So,
Oh Holy
how
Night,
has Christmas music impacted you?
What kind of music?
I said, how has Christmas music impacted you as a
Christmas
child
music.
and growing up?
Well, I think even if people are not Christians, I think they just love Christmas music. And for myself, I've always loved "Oh Holy Night," and I heard a version of it by Selah, and I thought their version of it was so moving, so powerful, that it just makes my insides literally just want to worship. I just want to look upward and put my hands up and just say what a divine night it was that he came to us. And in college, I was taking sign language classes at the time because, when you're a creative person, you don't know what you want to be when you grow up. It's hard to direct your creativeness sometimes into a profession. And so I had a rough beginning in my college life trying to figure out what I was going to do because I knew I was creative, but I didn't know if I was that good. I didn't know if I was good enough to make it with my voice or anything. I didn't know if I was. To me, it was just something normal that I could do. I can play the piano. Hey, I can write and I can sing. And so I kept changing careers. I didn't have enough confidence in myself to really pursue music the way I wanted to because I was insecure, even though I was a pistol. I was an insecure pistol in that area. And so at one point I thought that I would teach the hearing the hearing challenge the deaf. And so I was taking sign language. So I took that in college. But years later, fast forward to a few years ago when I was hearing "Oh Holy Night" by Selah, I just wanted to somehow dance with it and move with it in a way that would honor the Lord. And that piece in particular, what I did with it was I just came up with a sign language to it, which had not where I wouldn't just stand still and do sign language, but I would move with the music while I was doing the motions of the sign language. And it turned out fairly well. And a lot of times I get asked to perform different places. I've had churches when they do like their Easter cantatas, they'll say, hey, can we hire you to put together a sign language for this piece or that piece, and we'll bring you in to do it while our orchestra plays. Or it certainly is a lot of fun, and I love performing in that manner of worship and that style of creativeness with the sign language and movement while I am listening to music. I just love to see music expressed in so many ways.
Yes, well, in interpreting with sign language and interpretive dance has some very distinct similarities because it's a visual form of communication in a nonverbal manner, and I just love it. And the fluidity, it just really came through, and it's quite beautiful to watch. So
it really
I'd
is.
encourage,
and I've seen. Go ahead.
I was going to say I'd encourage everyone to go to YouTube and type in ML Morlock in the search bar and check out the two videos that are there. That Oh Holy Night is just, any time of the day or night or month or year, it's very appropriate to watch because that Holy Night doesn't change just because it's spring or summer or fall. It doesn't have to necessarily be a Christmas thing.
Yes.
But
they can also go to my website because I think I have some of them on my website too, some of the sign language videos on my website as well under the worship tab. While we're there, why don't you give your website URL for everybody so they know what we're talking about? Yeah. My website is called Behind Me Now. And you can go to behindmenow.org, .net, or .com, but just type in Behind Me Now, and it should take you straight to my website. I do lots of things with my ministry. I speak at women's events or conferences, and I go out and do worship a lot. But I also, another side of my ministry is I work with women behind the state penitentiary bars here in Nashville at the state penitentiary. And I I go in and mentor them and do Bible studies with them and take worship into them, and I'm there waiting for them when they get out. I help them with clothing and where they're going to be living, and help them with some transportation. I just try to help them get on with their lives, and so that's where Behind Me Now was developed, and meaning that when they get out of there, that whole part of their life is behind them now, and it's time for them to start something new. So that's where Behind Me Now was developed. So, yeah, if they go to Behind Me Now, they can check out any videos or clips or see some teaching that I've done, or they can even donate if they want to be a part of it. That would be great.
Yeah, well, life is a collection of seasons, and fortunately for a lot of inmates, that season has an end. So it's good that you're there for them inside and out.
Yes.
Why don't you just tell a little bit about your education, because you're quite intelligent, you're quite talented, and not too many musicians I know have gone to the educational extent that you have. So why don't you just share a little bit about your...
Wow, and I always feel like I'm such a scattered musician, and most musicians are, because we've going on inside of our heads, but well, like I said, in my early years, I didn't know what to do and how to harness any creative side of me. And I remember when I was finishing high school and I was trying to figure out what to do in college, my mother said to me, well, why don't you just be a school teacher? Girls teach. They're teachers. And back in those days, 30-something years ago, that would be a typical response. And so I was like, well, okay, because I didn't know what else to do. So I went off to Auburn University, War Eagle, and I got a bachelor's in education, and then I taught school for a little while, and then but at the same time I was out doing concerts and singing, and I had a group that traveled with me, and we did all that kind of stuff. But then I also, right a little later, I decided that I would go on and get my master's in education, and I did, and I got an endorsement in education as far as ESL, working with students in a second language. And then I went off to Ecuador for about 3 years and taught over there in Ecuador for 3 years using my ESL degree. And then I came back here back in 2010, back to Nashville. I've been back here ever since. And almost 2 years ago, I started working on my doctorate in theology. So that's what I'm doing now, because I really have been loving the speaking side and the teaching side of Behind Me Now, of this ministry, because I do like to be on stage, and I do like to perform and sing, but I didn't realize how much of a teacher I really am. So going off to college in my earlier years and getting a degree in education, even though I didn't know it at the time, that was so of the Lord too. He doesn't waste anything that we might think might have been a waste. He uses it all. You know what I mean? He just uses it all. And he definitely did that with me in my earlier years. I thought maybe those years would never pan out to mean anything because, hey, I was just going into education because I don't know what else to do. But it turned out that I am a good teacher, and I do love explaining things and teaching the Word of God. And so that's one reason why I decided, the more speaking I get up and talk, I really want to understand my Bible. I really want to understand the Old Testament, the New Testament, what happened to the Israelites, and, how God was faithful from the beginning of the book to the end of the book, how he's been faithful in our lives. And so now that's why I went back to work on my degree in theology, because I want to be able to come from a place of understanding well so that I can take people deeper when I am speaking. I want to be able to take them deeper because I've been deeper. You know what I mean? You can't take somebody where you've not been before. So I just wanted to take on that responsibility and learning so that I can pass it forward. And I have been loving my classes in theology. I don't like doing the research papers, that's of course, but I am learning a lot from it.
Yeah. I can relate to it. Master species are not easy to write, and you just kind of regurgitate what you've learned out. But
yes.
anyway, that's another topic. But upcoming in a few minutes, we're going to be playing your song "Rejoice," and it is a reflection of your creative approach and your understanding of Scripture. Now, this was inspired by a book of the Bible that one of those small Old Testament books. So why don't you tell the story behind?
Well, I was going through a few things myself when I first started reading Habakkuk. In fact, I didn't even really know much about Habakkuk, but at the time I was just going through a place of darkness, and also I was walking with a friend of mine who was suffering and actually died from brain cancer. So those two parallel things were going on in my life, and I don't know how, but I just felt the Lord kind of speaking inside of me to go read the book of Habakkuk. And I was like, well, I don't even know if I've ever read much in Habakkuk before. So I went in, or Habakkuk, depends on how you say it. But I did go and I looked, and it's only like 4 chapters long. And as I was reading and studying about Habakkuk, I've learned quite a few things about Habakkuk. And first of all, he lived during one of Judah's most critical periods. His country had fallen from the height of Josiah's reforms to the depth of violent treatments of its citizens, a real oppressive measure against the poor, and just a collapse of the entire legal system. And the world around Judah was at war, and Babylonia was rising, and just the threat of invasion from the north added to Judah's, internal turmoil. And Habakkuk, he is what most people don't know this, but he was considered a singing prophet because he had a lot of musical notations in with his writing, and some of his things were known as something that would be used for leading, worship. But he was a prophet, and he questioned God. He kind of was like, where are you in all of this, everything that's going on? And as I'm reading this, I'm thinking, yeah, God, where are you right now in my life? I am hurting so bad with some things that are going on, but what is going on here? And so as I reflect over Habakkuk, I noticed that at the very beginning of the book, the first 4 verses of Habakkuk is he's just overwhelmed by the circumstances all around him. He can think of nothing except for the iniquity and the violence he sees among his people. And although Habakkuk addresses God at the beginning of the book, he believes God has removed himself from the earthly scene. I mean, he's using words like men are in control and evil men at that, and they act like one would expect men to act without God's restraint. He uses words like violence and plundering and lawlessness, and these are the kinds of words that he uses at the beginning of the book. But there is such a stark contrast to the last part of the book, how different it is, the scene is in the last 3 verses of the last book compared to what you see at the beginning. Because at the end, everything has changed. The prophet is no longer controlled by or even anxious over his circumstances because his sights have been raised higher. He's no longer worried about the temporal affairs. Those kind of things no longer fill his thoughts, but his thoughts are on things above. And so towards the end of the book, he is no longer being ruled by worldly things. Instead, he fixed his hope on God because he does realize that God does have an interest in them. So when I was writing, and also in Habakkuk is where we get those famous words, the just shall live by faith, right? You've heard those words before. And they come from, we mostly hear it from when we read Paul in the New Testament because he quotes it. But he gets it from Habakkuk. The just shall live by faith. So one thing I noticed about Habakkuk was that, you know, at the beginning he's like, "Where are you, God?" And he's questioning God. He hasn't lost his faith, because if he lost his faith, you know, he wouldn't even be talking to God, right? You know, I mean, he wouldn't even be reaching out to God if he didn't believe that God was there. But by the end of the book, he is saying to all the people around him, you know, basically, you guys hold on. The just will live by faith. Therefore, I'm going to rejoice, you know. And so that's what the song that I wrote is about, called Rejoice. It talks about happy beginning. And actually, some of it is straight scripture that I'm using when I start the song off. And it says, gosh, I even forgot how it actually begins.
Well, we're going to hear it in about a minute. So if you remember, don't worry about it. It'll be there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like, well, it's just like there are no horses in the barns, and there's no fruit on the vine, and the flock is cut from the fold. So that's kind of how it starts off in the song. But then at the end, it's like, but God, I know you see me where I am, and you're the one that's going to make me whole. So I'm going to rejoice. I'm going to rejoice anyway, no matter what's going on around me. I rejoice. And then it talks about how the just shall live by faith.
That is
Go ahead.
Such a good truth to communicate. Now, one more time, what's your website? Because we're getting ready to play the song. Boy, what an intro. But what's your website again?
The website is called Behind Me Now. BehindMeNow.com or BehindMeNow.org.
Perfect. Well, ML Morlock, you've got a great 22-minute video that kind of shows you ministering, but right now we want everyone to hear Rejoice. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, too. Bye-bye.
Though the fig tree may not blossom, nor fruit be on the vine, the labor of the olive tree may fail, and the fields they yield no bounty, the flock cut from the fold. And there are no more horses in the barn. Rejoice, I will rejoice in the one who brought me here, and the one who holds me. Champion who gave much for my soul. He's the Lord of hosts who loves and makes me whole. Though I walk within a valley and I think I've lost my way, still my Redeemer knows just where I am. make me whole. Just shall live by faith. Just shall live by faith. Just shall live by faith and faith alone. Just shall live by faith. Just shall live by faith. Just shall live by faith and faith alone. Just shall live by faith. Just shall live by faith. Just shall live by faith and faith alone. By faith alone. And the fields they yield no bounty. The flock got from the fold. There are no more horses in the barn.
This has been the radio broadcast, Today's Christian Music with James Burkhardt. For more information about Christian songwriters and musicians international, please go to our website at www.csminetwork.com or email us at cwnnashville@gmail.com. God bless.